Once again, it's time to come on by and have a bite at the Crossroad Diner, a place where your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Crossroad Diner. I'm your host, Steve McCurdy. Today, I'm going to do two different shows. One for the YouTube audience, because the visuals are sort of important, and a different one for the audio audience who can't see those visuals. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to play for you the Crossroads Diner version of The Keeper at the Inn. This little book I wrote many, many years ago because my kids didn't understand why an innkeeper would put Mary and Joseph in a stable. And so this sort of explains that in a very charming way through the character of Japhas, the old innkeeper. I wrote this book long ago. I've got a handful of them left, and I'm selling them this year at a deep discount. And I'm going to give you a way to get a hold of a copy of that. If you're listening on audio, I would urge you to go to YouTube, look up the Crossroad Diner, and look at this week's episode to see the visuals that are in the book. And you're feel free to show this to kids, grandkids, whomever you want to, because it's a great little Christmas story. So let me share with you The Keeper at the Inn.
Hello and welcome to The Keeper at the Inn. I am known as the Story Master, and I tell stories from far and wide that have been whispered to me by the Great Spirit. This is one that actually took place. You'll find it in the book of Luke, in your Bible. And so let us begin. My name is Japhas. I'm a very old man, and I have a story I think you should hear. Of an evening like this, a very long time ago, even before I was born, my dear. Yes, it began a long, long time ago beneath a rock near the bottom of a hill. A young man and woman started this story, and the best part of it continues still. You see, there I am, sitting looking at the old manger, the feeding trough, and sitting with me is my dear friend, a lifelong friend. You'll learn more about him in just a moment when you turn the page. Finding no neighbors in that region with nice houses ready to move into, the young woman said, "Let's live in the shelter of this stone." And the young man started building a lean-to. See, he has some help. He's found himself some stones, and the young lady's looking into the undercovered area that's even got water, and beside her is my friend when he was very young, and his friend, who was also very young, a goat. Now, the goat's name was Estelle. It's not in this book. It's something that's just private between you and me. But my friend's name, the young donkey, that's Bernard. Let's see, we were talking about my father built. Ah, yes, let's go to the next page. As the years went by, he added strong walls to keep the wind and the weather out. And they decided their family could prosper there. Oh, of that they had very little doubt. Your father's putting a door on there. Bernard is studying him somewhat, and Estelle is contemplating the prospect of eating the hammer. Mother is at the fire, rubbing her tummy, which has become rather large. Interesting. There's a story there. Well, I was born inside that tiny space, and my father, quick, smart, and able, made a cradle for me from the cow's feeding trough. You see, our house was also our stable. You see Estelle having lunch there, and very surprised to see something moving about in her lunch bucket. Bernard was quite concerned. I think he thought that Estelle was going to hurt whatever it was wiggling in there. He didn't know that the time would come when we would be great friends. Look on the next page. You can see me sitting there on his other side, trying to get him to go in a direction that he wasn't facing, while my other brothers use him for a climbing post, his poor little ear in particular. All my brothers were born and cradled there as well. I thought we'd live there all our lives till we died. That all changed when my sister Eliana came along, because this is how she cried. It was dreadful. Now, as crowded as it was in that little room, it was even more so with the animals in. So Eliana gets the credit for our new living space. The building of the house began to begin. You see Eliana there through the window, screaming her lungs out, piercing our ears, and Father teaching the boys and I how to stack stones so that we can build the house. Well, we built a quite remarkable house. It took us several years, as a matter of fact. Well, that was just those brothers. There were more to come. In fact, we needed quite a house indeed. My father was a wonderful builder-man whiz, with tools and with stone and with wood. Well, when it came to mechanicals, everyone agreed my father was great, not just good. He built a house with 4 rooms, one for him and our mother, one for all of us boys, with Eliana's far from any other. Look at the house. See all of the rooms? Now on the bottom and on the right, and your parents will help you find that perhaps, is Mom and Dad's room, and it says so right on it. See, they had a large bed and a rug and a dresser and all kinds of wonderful things that didn't exist in that time. Then there's the main room above it. You know, it has a table, and there's a fireplace and a great large area. And then between Father's room and Eliana's is a great thick wall. See that down at the bottom? Double thick wall? Eliana's room is rather small, but there was only the one of her, you see. Then another double thick wall, and the big room there on the left for all 6 of us boys. It even says so on the page. The boys. Yes, there's a great room. We had a wonderful time. Now, the room that we cooked, ate, and lived in was wonderful, open, and large. Room for Father to build his furniture and for Mother to firmly take charge. That's the great room where all the work took place. You see, I'm helping Father, being a diligent, good son, helping him to build his furniture. Now let's go around the room. Mother's there at the table, preparing dinner. One of the boys is trying to catch a morsel in the process. Over the mantel, one of our lazier brothers is taking a bit of a nap, while one of the more mischievous is trying to grab something that's hanging there. I believe those were onions. And the other 2 boys are hoping to catch them. Those were the twins, double trouble, as we like to refer to them. And, of course, Estelle is trying to eat a piece of the table, while Eliana, at the very bottom, is preparing to eat a nail. The strong, thick walls he built withstood every season's test. But Eliana's walls were the thickest, thicker by far than all the rest. "It's a fortress for our little princess," Mom and Dad would say with pride. But if the truth be known, it was so they could be alone. They couldn't hear her when she was inside. Now, see, Father's room with Mother is very, very nice, but there's a huge double-thick wall between it and Eliana's room. Yes, and below you can see Eliana in her room, jumping up and down and going in all directions and slamming her doll about and yelling at herself. Oh, she was a piece of business, that one was. Father then began building furniture for all the folks around our town. Mother took to making their clothing, and it seems we always had people around. Our main room was built out larger. Rooms got added here and there. Visitors passing through would ask to stay. We'd have folks sleeping everywhere. See, we had a chap sleeping up there on the mantel where my brother liked to sleep and take his naps. And right beside the fireplace there, another person's wrapped himself into a pretzel. And down below, Estelle is eating a bit of grain and nudging up against one of the guests who's using that grain as a pillow. One fellow's got himself wrapped around the stairs in a very curious way. That's a very interesting place to sleep indeed. Poor Bernard giving someone a lick who's not paying him any attention. On the far left is a chair that Father's in the process of building. He was always building something, and there's the wonderful sign. I remember it. "More beds upstairs." Always room for more was my father's motto. Once a man admired our wide front door. Father showed him how he'd carefully cut it in. "You're a great builder of houses," said the man. "Houses," said another. "I thought this was an inn." Well, Father had never stopped to think about it. He'd just done the things he knew how to do. "These folks say we're an inn," he said to Mom. "I suppose so, dear. Hurry up, lots to do." "Put more water in the soup, Eliana," Mother would shout from the greeting door. "We need more meat, more meal, more bread." Father'd say, "Yes, there's always room for more." See, I told you, that's what he would say. He would say that all the time. And see how he's showing the fellow how the door was cut in? And another chap has a sash in his hand and goes, "An inn? What's this about an inn? That sounds strange to me." Well, part of the hospitality of our house is that we always had strangers in that we tried to make feel welcome. And at the door, that's Mother beckoning for someone to come in and join us, while Father gathers all of the grain and brings everything to the table. And you can see all of us are trying to set the table, do the best we can to help out, except, of course, for Eliana, who is distracting Mother and keeping her from doing her work. But I'm not bitter. This is an interesting page in that it shows how frequently I would work alone in the stable, with Bernard and Estelle playing games with me. You know, I think people were friendlier then than now. I just remember how my father would say, "Well, yes, I know it's inconvenient. You sleep right over here." Then he'd say, "Son, try to never turn a lonely soul away." On the next page, it's much later. My brothers grew up and they married. Eliana, too. They all moved away. But since we didn't have their gifts and talents, my wife and I decided we would stay. We took care of my parents as they grew old. When guests were in, we cared for them as well. And on nights when it was just the four of us home, then old innkeeper stories we would tell. There's the pictures on the mantelpiece of all my brothers and even Eliana and her husband. Mom is taking another picture over, while my wife prepares something for us to eat. Father there is facing me, telling me a story, and I'm listening intently, trying to learn how to be a good innkeeper. When my parents passed on, I wasn't sure what to do. But my wife stood in the big, hearty kitchen and with hands on her hips said, "Caiaphas, get busy. You're the innkeeper now. It's tradition." As the years went by, we fared well enough, though newer inns had emerged here and there. My wife's wonderful cooking wore out 3 cooking pots, while all I wore out was my hair. Then a decree went out from Caesar Augustus. Seems all the world was to be taxed. Every man must return to his home to be counted. Well, that meant guests. Quick! All the chairs must be waxed! You see me there, all full of energy, dashing home to get the inn ready, do the good work? Unfortunately, a surprise awaited me there. In anticipation of my imminent wealth, I made all the rooms ready as could be. Then all my brothers arrived, with their children and wives, all expecting rooms here, and for free. Eliana and her lout of a husband, too. Oh, just look at them all lined up there. I had 2 paying guests and 29 relatives, all wanting rooms with a view. Why should we pay to stay in our own home? Well, they were right. There was nothing I could do. All day long I turned them away. Lonely, dusty travelers, desperately eager to pay. If my family would have shared, I could have still made a go. But share? Share my space? Are you mad? Heavens, no. Look at the window there. See my poor wife crying out to heaven for relief from all of... And the children, see them at the top of the window, peeking out, climbing all over everything. And the poor folks, look at that fellow at the door there. He's got a bag of gold ready to pay me. Oh, it was a ridiculous situation. At sunset he came and knocked on my door. "Go away, I'm full up, I can't take any more." "That's too bad," he said, as his hand rubbed the frame. "All the inns are full, everywhere the story's the same. But this workmanship is fine. I wish we could have stayed." And he turned to press on. The sun would not be delayed. Then I saw his tired little donkey, and on it his tired little wife. I had never wished I was an only child as much in my entire life. And then I had an idea. "Young man," I said, "I do have a spot. Now, I warn you, it's not fancy or fine, but if you'd care to look, I can take you round back." And he said, "Let's see what you have in mind." Now, I was born and raised in that stable. All of my family had lived there as well. But the look on his face spoke loud and clear. This was not what he wanted. I could tell. "I have nothing better to offer you, son. You're welcome to this, if you dare. Perhaps your young wife could rest here for a bit, while you search for something better elsewhere." See how confused he looks, and the hurt look in his eye, and the little donkey that's been carrying the young lady all this time. Even the donkey is looking around confused, whereas down at the bottom, Estelle and poor dear old Bernard with his broken ears from us climbing on him. They both look on with great welcome. They would love to share their space. As you can see, I'm very taken with what the young lady is about to say. You'll learn about that in a moment. They had to speak privately for a bit. I wanted the best for them, and he wanted the best for her. I had offered, you'll recall, for them to look elsewhere, and I believe that that is precisely what he would have done. But it was her words that then changed his mind. "Let it be, Joseph. This will serve our needs. Thank you, innkeeper. You have been very kind." I fell in love with that child right there on the spot. There was little for her I would not have done. I spread fresh straw to make things look nice. But in moving the manger, it came all undone. "Mary, I can repair this if he has a few tools," said the young woman's strong, tender man. She looked to me. I opened a door. My father's tools I placed in the carpenter's hand. With him busy at work and she settling in, I began to feel better and right. They were as comfortable as this old keeper of the inn could make anyone on this Bethlehem night. You see, it's no surprise that the old manger fell apart. It was older than I am. But isn't it wonderful that by the strangest of chances, the young man was a carpenter and knew how to fix it? Knew how to fix things that I didn't know how to fix, but that my father had ensured we had the tools and were prepared for. I find that almost a miracle. Duties in the house called me to task. We fed them all, got them off to bed, but the peace wouldn't last. A pounding came on my door, and the voice life had taught me most to dread. See how many arms it takes for me? I'm giving toast to one fellow and pointing a direction and wiping, and then I'm also handing a child a doll and stirring a pot and hammering. Oh, I was busy that night. Oh, yes. And then there I am in bed, finally catching some rest, and the door's all bent out of shape for the pounding, but you know who's on the other side of that door, don't you? "Jaifa!" she cried as she pounded. "We can't sleep with this light that's so bright." "Humph! Deduct your discomfort from the fee you won't pay me," I shouted back. But wouldn't you know, she was right. I ran outside to look into this brightness and to escape my sister's infernal din. And a star hung high, lighting all of the land, but it shone down brightest just back of my inn. I turned to go investigate this mysterious showing of light, when 600 shepherds came rushing down the lane. Okay, it was 5, but it seemed like more in the night. See her pounding into my room, the light splashing all about and making me angry there. But then when I went outside, my goodness, what a picture that was. That was quite something. I didn't know what was going on. I know that you do because you've heard the story before, but I still had things to learn. One of them grabbed me up by my lapels. Another yelled, Where's the child that we seek? Children, says I. Oh, I have an info right here. They're yours for the asking. Sweet and meek. And then they told me the story of the angel's words, singing praises and heralding on high of the Christ child born in a stable that night. Oh, I knew of a stable very nearby. Look at them, see how agitated they are? Well, you would be too if you'd been talking to a bunch of angels flying about in the sky. Well, they had a mission, and they were going to find out where that child was. That's what they were going to do. Well, they rounded the house much faster than I. I had to push my way through, begging, please. But when I arrived, I was in for the shock of my life. All the shepherds were there, on their knees. The most remarkable child I had ever seen. A most remarkable story to tell. There, in the manger my cradle had been, a miracle drove me to my knees as well. See all the shepherds kneeling down, and the light shining forth? See, it even shines upon me. Brightness, a glow, and yet it wasn't light. It certainly made me warm, though. The last thing I said to you was, a miracle drove me to my knees as well. For I don't know how it is that I knew what I knew, but I knew he was the king, you see? The king had come into the world, into my very world, and he'd come just exactly like me. And like you. He came for us all, you know. I hope you've enjoyed the story. Until next time, this is the Story Master for old Jaephus, saying good night, and by all means, Merry Christmas.
You know, I've always loved that little story because the innkeeper had his own Crossroad Diner moment when he had the inn full of family and these kids came to his door and he wanted to help them. So he made a good decision, one that really helped them out. Now, the soundtrack that you just listened to is included with every book. It's in a CD that's in the back. And I know you're saying that we don't have CD players much anymore. So we made it into an audiobook that's reachable on the internet. And it's got, in the back of the book, that's got the links there that you can get right to it. Storymaster can walk the child, the reader or non-reader, right through it. I'm hoping you'll find this to be a really appropriate gift for your child or your grandchild. And if you have a group, like a homeschool group, parochial school group, a Sunday school class, we've got discounts on the book that are $10 for an individual book, $96 for a case of 10, $200 for a case of 25. And I'm going to pick up all the shipping to get it to you hopefully before Christmas. I hope you'll share this with someone who you think would benefit from it and their heart would be touched. So the discount code that the folks on the video can see, but if you're on the audio, it's bit.ly/20 capital CRD, Crossroad Diner. So that's bit.ly/20 capital CRD. And we'll see you next time on the Crossroad Diner. Thanks for being with us once again in the Crossroad Diner, the place your spirit goes when it might be time to change direction. We'll see you next time.